Welcome, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us today for this very special and important presentation that we have been so blessed to give around the country in-person events this year and also over in Europe, speaking with cat parents and veterinarians and vet techs and pet health professionals, teaching people how to feed cats a better diet. And it's our passion project this year. So we're very excited to now bring it online to everyone here on YouTube. We're so grateful that you guys are all, so many of you guys are joining us, because that means that there's so many people that really want this information. So
this is going to be a little bit different than our normal lives that we do. We're actually going to go through the entire presentation, and then we will open up for a Q&A at the end, and we will stay here until we answer all the questions.
Yeah, we want to offer as much value as possible to the people who are joining us here live, but we also want to offer as much value as possible to the people that have to come back later and watch so that they can get all the information up front. So we're going to try to keep this presentation to 30 minutes or below, hopefully even less than 30 minutes, and then we will roll into a Q&A with you guys. We're just very grateful. So with that said, we've got a lot of devices going on here that we don't
have these slideshows. So this is going to be
this is our actual presentation that we've been giving.
Yeah, if you guys know us, this is going to be a technological challenge for us.
It's always a technological challenge for us.
Boom!
But look, wait, it's happening. All right, guys. So let's just dive right in. Many of you guys, obviously, who are joining us here already know who we are. But for those of you guys that might be joining us for the first time, I'm Jay.
I'm Adrian.
And together we are the two crazy cat ladies. We started in pet nutrition back in 2005, and which has been 20 years now working in pet nutrition. And when we started off, we learned a whole lot about the pet food industry specifically, and about how deceptive their marketing can be and their labeling can be, and how low, how they have such low quality ingredients in this multi-billion-dollar pet food industry. So we were grateful that we learned that. However, as cat parents, the majority of basically everything that we were learning about as far as health and well-being was about dogs. So we learned a lot about dogs and dog health, which is great. However, we're cat parents, and we could not find the resources that we needed to help our cats naturally, or to help our cats nutritionally. So in 2015, we branched off and decided to become that resource we so long to find. Our motto is learn, share, and grow every day. And that's what we've done for the past 10 years, is learned as much as we can about cats, how to help cats live the longest, healthiest, happiest lives possible. And then we share it with other cat parents, and then we grow together as a community. So it's a little bit about who we are.
But today, you guys, this is such an exciting topic for us. And I know that everyone here is here because they understand that feeding our cats, the food is foundational, and that feeding our cats a better diet is a great idea, but it can be difficult. Now, this is a journey that we have been through ourselves. We do understand the challenges of it, but we've also experienced the incredible rewards that come from being able to move our cats over, transition our cats over to a healthier diet.
Yes.
And I think that the beautiful Dr. Karen Becker says it best when she said, over time, the foods that we choose to feed our pets either heals them or harms them, and the responsibility to choose wisely falls squarely on us as our guardians.
Yes, but our cats, guys, that's the biggest roadblock in the 10 years that we've been speaking directly every day, all day long, to cat parents about diet with their kitties and how important it is. The biggest roadblock that we as cat parents have is, my cat won't eat that, right? Or my cat throws up when I try something new,
or my cat gets
diarrhea, or my cat won't try anything, or I've tried a million different things and they continue to say no. In this presentation, we are going to give you guys the one key ingredient that every cat parent you already have that will be the make or break for the success of this transition to get your cats eating a better diet.
And I want to tease it a little bit more. This is scientifically proven, a scientifically proven ingredient that will make this a success.
Yes.
So in order for us to choose wisely, we have to first understand, why our cats need a better food. And then going into that, how, figuring out what are these steps for your individual little picky kitty, if you've got a picky one, what they need in order to make that transition.
Right. So we're going to go a little bit through the science here, and we're going to kind of blow through it with different audiences that we've had over this year. We've spent more time on the science and a little bit less time on the how. But this one, guys, we know for cat parents specifically, and to open this up to the world, we know that the how is the most important. So we're going to go over the why, so you guys can really get, you won't do the how if you don't know the why. So the why is very important, right? So we're going to go through the why, and then we are going to discuss all the tips and tricks, all the steps that us as cat parents need to take, and that secret ingredient as well.
Okay, so let's first talk about the origin of our beautiful little fluff balls. This is one of those things that we first need to really get a grip on. Our cats are not small dogs. They are not iguanas. They are not parrots, that need, seeds and fruits. What do cats need specifically as a species? I think this was really awesome that in 2013, this is old news, but it got a ton of press. It was a study published in Nature Communications showing that our domestic cats share 95.6% identical DNA with tigers. And shared DNA is totally newsworthy. That is a big deal for us to understand that our little companion animals are connected so intrinsically to big cats. But it's more than just shared DNA. This is what's amazing. Our cats also share 95.6% identical genome with tigers.
It's much bigger than just DNA. It's the genome, which
genome it's even more important than DNA. So if you were to think about it like DNA, those are building blocks. Think of them as a brick. That's a piece of DNA. With those building blocks, you can build a room. And that room would be genes. Those are what shared genes are. A genome is taking all of those amazing things and building an entire home, complete with electricity and running water. That is the difference between sharing a building block and sharing a genome. So that is a very exciting thing. So the differences that our domestic cats have between the big cats is that, physically and behaviorally, those are mainly in scale and application, their retractable claws, their hunting instincts, but their nutritional and biological blueprint is essentially identical.
Right. And what does that mean? That means that our little tiny tigers that we have here in our home are obligate carnivores. And what that means is that a true carnivore are those whose diets require nutrients found only in animal flesh. While an obligate carnivore might be able to ingest a small amounts of plant matter, they lack the necessary physiology required to correctly digest this in larger amounts. And what is the pet food industry feeding our kitties?
Look at this, you guys. So a reasonable approximation from global industry reports, including recorded sales from the pet food industry itself, and consumer surveys between 2008 and 2024, show that 96% of the cat food sold is highly processed, while only 4% of the cat food that we purchase as consumers is considered minimally processed.
Yeah, and I would say it's actually 96% ultra processed, right? So we're talking in today's day, like we're now talking minimally processed and ultra processed. And when it comes to our cats, now dogs are different. We talked about this last night on our Q&A with you guys too. Dogs are different. The dog parents, dogs are actually going into a different realm, a different statistic here. And that number has dropped down, I believe, to 80% from 96 over the past 10 years that we've been doing this. In the dog world, fresh food is actually rising. More species appropriate diets are actually rising, whereas the kibble industry, the pet food for cats are actually increasing. So that's why it's really important for us this year and right now to bring this to you guys, because we got to start moving that needle, and we have to do it with our cats, and we can do it.
So this is what the majority of our cats are eating. And I think it's really important for us to understand what is this food made up of? Because I think that we're gonna find that there's gonna be a number of issues that pop up that you're gonna find familiar, and being able to understand how foundational food is can really help us move the needle. So the needle.
So being that 96% of our cats eat a kibble only diet, that they eat the majority of their diet actually comes from a dry food. What's wrong with that? I don't know. Let's see.
I find this interesting that this study is excellent. So it shows that our domestic cats balance their own micronutrient intake by selecting low carbohydrate foods.
When given the choice.
When given the choice. Obligate carnivores have no biological need for the amount of carbs and starches in these highly processed kibbles.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we're the only, as Dr. Karen Becker said at the beginning from her quote, we are the only option when it comes to our cats' food. They don't get to choose as they do outside or in the wild. They get to choose what types of food that they want to eat. And science shows that they're going to choose something that is very low carbohydrate. We, however, are the ones that are offering them the foods, and the foods that, for so long, there's no shame in this, right, guys? Because if you know us, you know that we used to feed a kibble diet. It was all we knew. It was cat food. That's all we knew to feed. So we, put down a trough of kibble every day, and we let our cats graze like cows, and they ate just like that every day. But once you know better, you can do better. And now, we're able to see the lifespan and the health span, as Dr. Randy says, Dr. Randy, the pet vet, says the health span of our cats grow exponentially.
Let's talk about some of the health consequences of kibble. I think that this is, like Jay just mentioned, and Dr. Becker said, we're the ones that get to choose their food. And this is something that can make a difference every day, 2, 3, 4 times a day. So when we think about giving our cats only dry food, we think about the fact that it's a high carb and starch content. Our cats were meant to digest proteins and fats, not starches. And kibble cannot be held together without an inordinate amount of carbohydrates. Notice that they don't put that on the bag as well. It's not in the nutritional profile on your cat's food. You have to do some special math to figure out what that carb content is. And kibbles are usually 45+% carbohydrates.
Right. And carbohydrates, what we need to understand is that carbohydrates are inflammation. They are the food for inflammation. So they create inflammation in our cats' bodies, just like they do us. Right. So if you are going to your doctors, and even today, our doctors will say, well, are you eating a high carb diet? If you're severely inflamed, you have a lot of, aches and pains and things like that. We all know as humans that by changing our diet to a more fresh diet, to giving our bodies the nutrients that they need versus the junk food that we have an option to eat, we're going to feel better as humans. This same goes as mammals, and the same goes for our little tiny tigers who are also mammals. So that on top of the carbohydrate count, we've got a very low moisture in a kibble diet, right? So, it's why it's called a dry food diet, is because it's dry, right? So it has very little moisture in it. Our cats are desert animals. They are unable to get the amount of moisture that their bodies need from the water bowl. They aren't like dogs. They're not small dogs, and their tongues don't ladle up water. So if your cat is actually drinking a lot of water, that's cause for concern, right? So we want our cats to be able to get their moisture from their food. On top of that, all of the fillers that are in these,
Yeah, right. There's a lot of hidden ingredients in those fillers as well. But back to the moisture for just a second. If you think about the fact that, like real meat proteins, 70 to 80% moisture content, whereas the kibble is between 6 and 10%. So they're never, like Jay said, they're never gonna be able to make up for the amount of hydration that they need at the bowl. And when it comes to the pet food industry knows that our cats are obligate carnivores. It's not that this is a hidden fact. It's not that many of us don't already know that. But when we think about feeding our cats anything other than cat food, it's like, well, why? This is 96% of what we cat parents are purchasing. What is the issue with that? And I think, the pet food industry has really figured out how to kind of manipulate the diets to include meat that allows our cats to survive, but not necessarily thrive.
Right. They replace much of the meat with the plant proteins, right? So
Corn,
so
wheat,
that
soy, peas,
right.
lentils.
Yes. So that our cats will survive. They will still survive. And they include meat, but a small amount of meat because meat's too expensive. So they replace that with plant proteins and other fillers that allow our cats to survive, but not thrive and not live the long lives that they actually deserve to live. Their lifespan is going down in rapid amounts. And we want to change that. And all of us do, I think.
So if we think about some of the health consequences of a kibble diet, there are so many diseases, but these are some of the known diseases that are impacted explicitly by diet: obesity, diabetes, urinary tract diseases, GI inflammation. You think of like IBD, IBS, all of these gastrointestinal issues that our cats are experiencing.
Chronic kidney disease and cancer, guys. It's, I mean, just on the rise. Chronic kidney disease, I believe 1 in 3 cats now is the latest statistic, will end up with chronic kidney disease at some point in life. Obesity, over 60% of our cats here in the US alone are obese. And this is all known. We all know that diet impacts this. And just imagine if we all, like, say we lived in a different world and we didn't even think about these like ultra processed foods when feeding our cats, and we fed them what they're meant to eat. I would bet that the majority of these would disappear on their own.
Be drastically reduced, but wait,
there's more. Well,
you guys.
Yeah.
More science is coming out showing the significance of the gut-brain axis. And this is something that doesn't just impact, our overall health, all those disease markers that we just looked at. It affects behavior. So this is where, this is so important, because I think the number one reason that cats are returned to a shelter, they're dumped on the side of the road, they're rehomed, whatever it is, are for behavioral problems.
Unfortunately.
Right. And these studies are showing that diet impacts feline aggression, anxiety, and excessive vocalization, which sometimes I like. But
their emotional health, emotional health. And again, just like every other mammal, just like us, our diet impacts our mood and our behavior. So when we think about all those cats that have been dumped on the side of the road, many of you guys are just beautiful rescuers, and you feed communities of cats that have been dumped. And you work and volunteer at the shelters. And that's such a beautiful thing. And you see all these cats that are just brought back to shelters or dumped on the side of the road, all because of behavioral issues. And think about the science shows that this gut-brain axis, by feeding our cats into health, by giving our cats their GI tract what they need, that access to their brain fires differently, and all of a sudden they're a happier cat. Just like us, when we're eating healthier, we're happier humans.
And think about this. I mean, we see this in our own cats. The idiopathic conditions that our cats face, there's more than 35 idiopathic, mean of unknown cause. We don't know why our cats are suffering from these things, but our cats are stoic. So 9 times out of 10, we've been there ourselves. We don't know that there's something wrong with one of our cats until something is very wrong. So by the time our cats are really dealing with feline idiopathic cystitis or hyperesthesia or any one of these idiopathic, we don't know why they're getting these diseases, idiopathic diseases, it's going to take an inordinate amount of pharmaceuticals, usually, is what we hear from our community, that we're just trying to deal with those symptoms instead of having a conversation about, is it possible that if we fed this beautiful species what their body needs, what their body is intended to eat, would this list of unknown cause diseases drastically reduce as well?
And I absolutely would say yes. I would actually bet my savings account on that, because when you think about these idiopathic ailments, we're looking, oh wow, thank you.
Let there be light.
It was so dark and now it's light. But when we're thinking about this, we can go right back to inflammation, right? Right back to inflammation when we're talking about and how the inflammation creates stress in the body. And then you look at this, I can't tell you guys, in the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks, I have had a case of cystitis. We have had a case of cystitis come to us every single day. A case of feline hyperesthesia happens all the time. Every week we get people that are dealing with so many of these different things. If we took inflammation out of their diet, if we were able to take inflammation, bad ingredients, poor ingredients, things that do not serve their bodies, I would bet my life savings that all of these would dissipate. They would either heal themselves or they would disappear completely.
Okay. So we've gone over kind of a reminder of why it is so important that our obligate carnivores get species appropriate food.
Right.
And
now let's get to the how, because the how is
this is what you're all here for.
This is what you're actually here for. Okay. So transitioning our cats to a species appropriate diet. And we're going to go through all the different steps here, guys. Right. So bear with us, because you're going to learn something in this presentation that is going to be super beneficial to your cat. Okay. So when we're talking about the how of getting our cats to eat a better food, we want to start with how do our cats actually eat?
So do you know,
pushing the wrong buttons.
Do you know why cats have whiskers and how many scent sensors they have?
And what does that have to do with their food?
Right. This is something that I think if you guys are part of our community, you probably know a lot about it. But our cats' whiskers are basically sensory organs. It's what helps them navigate their world, how helps them judge everything around them. So they're like radar sensors, environmental awareness. They're a measuring tool. They help them communicate. They are hunting aids, and they have whiskers on more than just their face, right? And
they help them balance everything.
Right. Their whiskers are incredible. They're not just beautiful little facial accoutrements. They are very important for how our cats exist. And their smell is also central to how cats understand the world. They have more than 200 million scent sensors. We have a very small fraction of what our cats have. And just imagine what you feel like, what it's like when you are overwhelmed by scent, especially if it's an unpleasant one. But even if you are in the perfume aisle at a mall, many people will get literally nauseous, migraines for days. It's just overwhelming. Now imagine increasing that to 200 million scent sensors and how important that is. So this is why it's so important to think about the dish. Yes. How are we feeding our cats?
How are we feeding our cats? So just as Adrian just said, when we give our cats a small bowl to eat out of, which is what, we were always, what the commercials show, it's what we were always taught to use, is just, give your cats a little bowl, give them a bowl of milk, give them a bowl of food. When they put their faces, when they have to shove their faces into a bowl and those whiskers are no longer able to read or judge their surroundings, that creates anxiety, that creates fatigue and what it's called whisker fatigue or whisker stress, whatever it is. Also, their scent sensors, when we're putting food, especially if we're trying to put a new food, right? We're trying to get our cats to eat a new food, but we're still putting it in that same little bowl. It is an aroma trap. It is holding in all those sensors, just like Adrian said, walking through the mall and smelling those like really strong perfumes. Imagine your cat, you put down a new food that they aren't recognizing it as food because they've never seen it before. They've never smelled it before. You put down a new food into a little bowl and they smell that, it's going to be overwhelming to them. And you're not probably going to get very far. So you want to consider instead using a plate, a wide shallow bowl, a platter, something that's going to release the aromas and allow their whiskers to still judge and their surroundings, right? We always want to consider the material. So material is very important. For those of you guys that follow us, we're very anti-plastic. So we want to stay away from plastic as much as possible, but stainless steel, glass, we use cellulose fiber. We want to use something that's going to be safe for them. But one of the make or break points when it comes to getting your cat onto a new diet could actually just be the dish that you're feeding them from. So that's not the key ingredient, but it is a key ingredient.
It is. So if you ever had a cat that actually just eats the middle of the bowl and leaves 2/3 of the food, but acts like they're starving, switch the dish. Yep. You're gonna be amazed.
Yeah.
So especially when transitioning diets.
So now let's get into the actual food section, right? So now we know what to feed them with, but let's get into the step number 1 when it comes to switching our cats from a dry food diet to a more species appropriate diet. Step 1 is going to be pick up that all day buffet. If we have food laying out for our cats to graze, then you will not get them to pick and choose a new food when you put it down, right? You're going to be way less successful at getting them onto a better food. Our cats are not cows. They were not meant to graze their food all day. They were instead meant to, in the wild, they are going to instinctively hunt and chase and pounce and kill small meals throughout the day, right? That doesn't mean, don't hang with us here. That doesn't mean you need to feed your cat 17 times a day, right? But it does mean that we need to start putting them on a routine.
But here's where I want us all to pump our brakes for just a second, because this step was the hardest for me. If you're used to putting down a trough of kibble in a Tupperware, and that's your one thing that you do to feed your cats every day, you're going to find that this is where you're going to have to really evaluate for yourself. First of all, think about the schedule. If you're going to pick up the all-day buffet, think about when you can feed your cats. Pick a schedule that's going to work for you and your cat, and emotionally prepare for this. Because for me, I come from an Italian family. I love my Italian mother, but I equate food with love.
Many people do.
So I want access to food all the time, right? And when you pick up that all-day buffet, your cat is going to tell you that they are starving. They're not starving.
They're not starving.
This is something, all the science for all mammals shows that it is wonderful for our bodies to have a time where we're not digesting food, where we can rest and restore and rejuvenate. Right. And that is very important for our cats as well.
Quick, very important health note here is that we cannot starve our cats like we can our dogs, right? So for instance, meaning our dogs, we can fast them over a prolonged period of time. And we can say, okay, you don't get food if you don't get to
you're not going to eat the food in front of you, then you're not going to eat.
Correct. Yeah. Like how I was, like how I was raised, right? Like you either eat your food or you starve to death. We can do that with our dogs safely. We cannot do that safely with our cats. Okay. So we'll take you through these steps, but do understand that starving our cats is not an option. Fasting periods, however, short intermittent fasting periods, absolutely healthy and absolutely safe. And so don't let your cat tell you that they're starving and 2 hours later, just give up and put down the all day buffet again. Okay.
They're very convincing though. So
they are.
Emotionally prepare yourself for change as well.
Yes. But why is routine so important when it comes to feeding our indoor kitties? Ohio State University did a study back in 2011 that showed the importance of routine for our kitties. And it revealed that taking our cats off of routine, not having a routine for our cats, actually 100% of the cats were showing sick behaviors, even if their blood panels came back. Okay, right? Like even if their blood panel didn't show that they were dying of sickness, they were showing that they were sick because their feeding routine had been taken off of schedule. So they just wanted to do a test and see, well, okay, they're always fed at the same time. Now we're going to take them off of that schedule and feed them at a different time or fast them for a certain amount of time and then, really mess up their schedule. So obviously, every routine gets broken at some point. It happens with us too. It's totally fine, right? But if we can start getting our cats onto a routine in the wild, they anticipate their meals. They get excited about that feeding time. And if we put them on a routine, they do the same thing in our houses. We see it every single day. You're probably going to see it in a little bit because it's going to be feeding time for our cats and they're going to start crawling all over us, right? So routine is really important. As much as possible, we want to get our cats on a routine. The routine, for those of you guys that are like, what time should I be feeding? The routine matters based on your schedule. What can you do, right? So if you work 9 to 5, then, you pick those times that work that you can feed your cats. How many times a day there's research all over the place. Do as much as possible that you can in small amounts, right? But the same caloric intake just as many times as possible and that work with your routine that you can keep up with, because that's going to be a very important key
And keep in mind too that there's automated feeders, there are fresh food feeders out there. There are a lot of options for us to be able to create something that's going to work for your schedule and for your cat.
Yes. Okay. So step number 2 is moving. So now we're moving from dry food to a wet food. Let's get going. First and foremost, we start very slowly and be consistent. Pick up that all day buffet. You've got that under wraps, right? Like they're eating their same kibble, but they're eating in smaller amounts throughout the day. Great. Now we want to start offering a little bit of wet food. We could do this by offering wet food instead of dry food when you first put down their morning meal, right? They fasted overnight. Now that's probably going to be their longest period of fast, which is going to be, 8 to 12 hours. Then instead of giving them wet food or dry food, let's try giving them some wet food and see if that works. You can also crush up the kibble and sprinkle it on treats on top of the wet food. You can mix the wet food. This is what we did. We mixed a little bit of the wet food into the dry, and we did it in whisper doses, right? So that we just actually started with a tiny amount to see if they would get interested in it. They smelled the majority of what they smelled, and what their whiskers told them was, okay, this is my food, because it was all mostly dry. dry, but then there was a little bit of wet. So they started associating that as food, and they would lick it, and then they would eat it. And then we'd increase that amount over time. You can also, if you have an uber picky kitty, you can place a spoonful of the wet food outside on that plate, right? Because now we're feeding from a plate. We can put a spoonful of that wet food outside of the dry food and then move it slowly closer to their kibble over time, right? We just got to be consistent about this, because consistency is going to be key in this process.
Be patient. So this is the one for us that took a lot of time. So switching our cats from dry food. If you have a kibble addict, you're going to understand this.
We did.
It can take a lot of time. So understand that it's worth it. Don't go out and buy like a bunch of food. Don't be like, oh, well, I found this wet food brand on sale, so I'm going to get 64 cans of that, because they will not want that food.
They will want it for a couple days maybe, and then they will not want it.
Right.
For those of you guys that are cat parents, you already know, like, our cats are just, they're finicky and funny like that. So we want to diversify. Now, research also shows that diversifying the diet, mixing up different proteins, mixing up different brands, actually builds the microbiome. So we're also building health by diversifying the different types of food that we're feeding. Right.
And I want you to enjoy this part of the journey. A lot of people think this is the hardest part. I know I did initially as well, but this is where you get to explore your cat's palate. Think about the fact that they're not going to have to eat the same thing for the rest of their lives. That's it. Like, think about that. We have found that our cats, and they change, right? Like one day they like duck, another day Jack never likes quail, but some of them like quail. Like, they figure out what does your cat like? What kind of texture do they like? What is their favorite protein? You can really explore, like, enjoy this time. You're exploring something new. You're doing something important. And it's a really exciting time, not just for the science of how incredible variety it is and diversifying the brands and the proteins, but what does your cat like? Find out what they really enjoy.
Yes. And then we're going to move on from a wet food to a fresh food diet. So when we say fresh food, we mean minimally processed. This could be gently cooked. This could be a fully balanced raw diet. We do want fully balanced. Once we get them, onto a full fresh food diet, we definitely want it to be a balanced diet. And when we started 10 years ago, there was one fresh food out there company making this type of food. And now there are tons. So now we have so much available to us. And there's also plenty of options to recipes where you can make food at home, and or maybe we just give a little bit of fresh food if we're on a tight budget and we were able to get them onto a wet food diet. We get them on a wet food diet, but we add in a little bit of fresh. That doesn't necessarily have to be complete and balanced, but we want to just add in as much fresh food as possible. So steps are very similar, although this process tends to go a bit really faster because the texture is very similar in a wet food diet and a fresh food diet, right? And the temperature is going to be very similar too. So you do basically the same kind of steps, mix a spoonful of the fresh food in with the wet, or you could pour juices of the canned food. If your cat likes, a lot of you guys tell us that your cats only lick the juices from, if you're giving the shredded canned foods, you can, the gravies, you can pour the juice or the gravy on top of the fresh food. You can place a treat. This is what we still do when we feed Jack quail or one of the, sometimes he's not into lamb, or we place a treat on top of the fresh food. And the treat, he loves his minnow munchies. So those dried minnows. So when he goes for that, then he's like, fine, I'm going to keep eating. Or you can do the same thing as with the kibble and wet food. And you can place a spoonful of the fresh food outside of the wet, and then slowly, again, over time, move it closer and closer until they start to identify. We teach them what food is. And so if we've only been feeding them dry food, as we did, our cats don't recognize other foods as food. So we teach them what it is. So that's why putting it outside and then slowly bringing it over during the happy time of eating, then they start to get the scent into their sense sensors, then they'll start associating that as food.
And this does go a little bit faster in our experience. For a lot of people that we know, it goes a lot faster than that transition from dry to wet. That's where a lot of people run into like the vomiting or the diarrhea. As Dr. Randy pointed out, that's because your cat's gut, it's not that it's bad. It's not that it's a bad thing. Your cat's gut is adjusting to it.
Right.
So it takes a little bit to just slow down the process.
Yes.
So pro tips, you guys.
Yeah. Pro tips. Again, the crushed kibble for kibble addicts, putting that on, whether that is wet food or whether that is fresh food, the little lickables, right? The churros and things like that. Cats go crazy for that. You guys know cats are crazy for that stuff. Putting that over the new food will also help in this transition process. We use a lot of freeze-dried toppers on our raw food. We feed our cats a species-appropriate balanced raw diet, and we use freeze-dried toppers. Shout out to Green Juju. We love them. Our cats love them. And they all love a different type, but we crush those on top of their raw food to really get them excited about mealtime. Sardines are a great source of omega-3 fatty acids. Most cats are like die hard for them. Not all cats, but and tuna is the same thing. Tuna is not as healthful as sardines, but if you get it in a can, they're inexpensive, right? You can get it at the market. Only get it in water. Don't get it in any of the other oils or anything like that. But you can pour that. Sometimes just the water itself, just the tuna water, will get them very excited, or the sardine water will get them very excited, or you can crush up a little bit and put it on top, or even mix it in. Parmesan cheese, whatever it is. Here's what we want to explain is that this is a means to an end. If you are like, well, but I wouldn't want to feed my cat Parmesan cheese, or I wouldn't want to feed my cat the, high mercury tuna that comes in a can. Get it. Understand completely. However, we want to consider the fact that what we're trying to do is get our cats to live the longest, healthiest, and happiest lives possible. So we have to get them on to a fresh food diet. Again, they're not small dogs, so this is hard for us cat parents. In order to do that, we sometimes have to use trickery. In order to use trickery, we sometimes have to use things that are not necessarily the healthiest thing, but aren't going to kill our cats, right?
And it's not predominantly what they're eating. It is a sprinkle on top. It is something that gets them interested, gets them excited, and is not 80% of their diet.
Right. And then
this is really important. Don't overlook this part, you guys, because I went into this transition part kind of like scared of it and overwhelmed and feeling stressed about it.
She said I was going to kill the cats.
When it was time to switch to raw food, Jay had been doing a lot more research than I had, but there was a huge fear factor for me. I told her, like, raw food is scary. I told her I thought she was going to kill our cats. In hindsight, it was the best decision she's ever made for our cats. And it is incredible. It's one of the reasons that we're so passionate about this, because when you see the difference, it's not just a difference in their disease markers, y'all. It is the light in their eyes. It is their energy. It's their mobility. It's their behavior. It's everything. It's incredible what the body does when it's given what it needs. So think about this. Let's make mealtime happy and calm. Think about the energy that you're putting into doing this whole transition thing, and not just the why, not just the science, not just why it's so important, but this is a family member of yours. Think about how cat is. When you understand a cat as a species, maybe think about playtime before meals. Cats were made, that's how they do it, right? They hunt and then they eat. We think it's playtime. They're exercising their instincts. So that's also something that could be very, very enriching. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, so yeah, if that, and remember, this is also important when you choose that routine time, right? Because you want to choose the routine feeding times that work well with your schedule, that will make you happy too, right? So, if you're able to make their mealtime where you come home, you relax for a minute, and then we play with that wand toy and we get them going as the tiny tigers that they are in our homes, and we get them expressing their instincts and going through that prey sequence, and then feed them and then follow it up with a meal, they're going to be much more apt to eat that meal, because that's what instinctively, 95.6% tiger, remember, that's what instinctively they're going to want to do next, is eat.
Calming herbs and cat grass. These are things that our cats absolutely love. And it can really help if you're dealing with a cat that's high anxiety or really having a hard time with transitioning. This is something that can really kind of just bring it down a notch and make it a lot easier.
Yeah, our cats love cat grass. Before, 2 of our cats specifically, every single meal while I'm preparing their meal, they jump up on the counter and they nibble on their cat grass as if it's like their hors d'oeuvre. And we love it. They're just getting their bodies ready to for mealtime, and that's to adjust for mealtime.
This is going to sound a little extreme, but think about this: letting your cat choose where they want to eat. Most of us have their little feeding station. They've got their water bowl and their food bowl, and that's where you eat, over in the corner of the kitchen. Think about this: cats instinctively know they don't appreciate their food next to their water. In the wild, they know that a food source can contaminate their water. So think about that. You also have cats that deal with, especially in multi-cat households, maybe you've got a Hoover in the room that goes around, scarfs their food, and then looks for everyone else's. You've got cats that they're solitary hunters. So a lot of cats prefer to eat alone. There's always an exception to all the rules with cats, but with our girls especially, every day, every meal, we follow them around and they choose where they want to eat comfortably.
Right. Yeah. So comfortability and feeling safe when eating.
Sometimes it's up high.
Yep.
Sometimes it's in their
I can't tell you how many people we've coached when they're like, I got a new cat. They're really anxious and I can't get them to eat anything. And I'm like, do you have a place up high that you could put the food? And they come back and they're like, oh my God, thank you so much. I didn't even think about that. Put it up high. They have less stress because now they're able to observe their surroundings in this new place that they're at. And now all of a sudden they feel comfortable and safe eating. Let your cats choose where they eat. And then first and foremost, or lastly, I will say,
and most importantly,
stay calm. Your energy, we're not going to get too woo-woo on you here, but your energy, whatever energy you're putting out when you're preparing your cat's food, is going to go into that food and be possibly even a make or break when it comes to your cat's eating it. Okay. So there's old statement that it's never as good as when grandma cooked it, right? Grandma's meals were always cooked with love, they said, right? Like you might have passed down the exact same recipe and you make it and you're like, man, it just doesn't taste like it did when grandma made it, because grandma made it with love. This is very true. And the same goes for when we are preparing our cat's food. We want to be happy about it. We want to be confident about it. We want to sing a song, do whatever you have to do in your head to make yourself feel good. Excited about. I will tell you, it still happens to this day, because we can't all be happy all the time, where it's not like we don't live in rainbows and unicorn world, right? I wake up, I stub my toe, I'm hungover or something, I don't feel well, whatever it is. I make their food first thing in the morning before I even have coffee. And when I'm making our cat's food, there has been so many times where I'm not in a good mood. I don't have that song in my head. I'm literally stressed and thinking about the day, and I'm making their food. And then I put it down, and 99.9% of the time they don't finish the food, or sometimes nobody eats the food. So the energy that you put into preparing your cat's food is going to be very important in the success of them actually eating. Now let's talk about you.
You guys, this is where it's so important that you be gentle and patient with yourself. We can put a lot of pressure on ourselves to get this right. And I should have started this, whatever. I know I felt that way after we did this. Don't. Every little baby step makes a big difference. Be patient and gentle with yourself. Be confident about what you're doing. Knowing the science of it is great, but also think about, there can be a lot of pushback in the fresh food world. Understand that our cats are obligate carnivores, and that we're confident about giving them what their bodies need. And that confidence helps with the consistency of continuing the process of transitioning.
And again, consistency is going to be key in this process, and it will build your confidence, because the science actually does show, when we say every little bit helps, science actually shows that simply replacing a small percentage, like 20 to 25% of your cat's ultra processed food with fresh food, can reduce disease markers in pets by massive amounts, right? Huge amounts. So every little bit that you get your cat to eat, whether it's a piece of organ meat, it's a little liver here, it's a little bit of, a fresh sardine.
Celebrate.
It's a little bit, celebrate. Don't beat yourself up. Celebrate your wins. Pat yourself on the back for every tiny bit of fresh food that your cats eat, even if it's just a piece of cooked chicken that you were making for the family and you shared it with your cat. This is good. These are steps in the right direction. Consistency is going to be key. All right.
Are you guys ready?
Are you ready for the key ingredient that you already have at home right now?
This is it, y'all.
Patience. Patience and perseverance pays, guys. We call it the 3 Ps: patience and perseverance. So consistency and patience pays, right? So
this isn't, like the study showed at the beginning of this, that our cats will naturally themselves balance their micronutrient intake. And now science is proving this. This was an incredible research project that was done with more than 30 cats, where they offered them 3 different types of food. The first was a fish flavored food that was completely unbalanced. The second was a rabbit flavored food that was completely unbalanced. And the third was a citrus flavored food. As you guys know, we use citrus as a deterrent for our cats many times. It was complete and balanced. This study proved that over time, given the choice, every single one of those cats first went to the fish, then to the rabbit. By the end of this study, they were all eating the orange flavored
food.
This is why patience is the key ingredient.
Right. This is why science shows that patience is the key ingredient, because in this study, they continued to leave out these 3 different types of food. One was good for the body. 2, and then we're talking about just the flavors they put in there, right? But the flavors that they put into these foods, they all went to Taco Bell first, right? And then they're like, oh, maybe we should go over to Panera Bread. And then they're like, okay, by the end of the study, every single cat was eating a homemade, nice diet, right? They were all eating what their bodies needed. So if we are patient and we persevere on a regular basis, small baby steps over time, but we continue to be consistent and persistent in giving our cats the option to eat a better diet, you will be successful and your cat will be on a better diet. So just so you don't have to have all of this information or take screenshots of every slide. We did get the URL feedcatsbetter.com for all of you guys all of you veterinarians or vet techs or holistic practitioners out there that are watching right now. If you have, your clients, you're trying to coach your clients on getting their cats onto a better diet, this is for you. For those of you guys that have friends that you're like, I really want them to feed their cats better, send them to feedcatsbetter.com. It's a complete free site. There's no gimmick or anything. They don't have to leave an email address. It's a public site, but it has this information. This video will also go on this page. But thank you guys so much.